One of the main things that we are asked on a regular basis is, how do I get started? For 7 weeks now, we've been laying the foundation for you to think differently about your money, and we've been challenging everything you've been taught about money your entire life. Today, we're going to review the 3 most important rules, and I'm going to give you a real life example on what you can do, changing one thing that'll change everything. As Jocko Willig said, discipline equals freedom. We're going to review these foundational rules of IBC to reinforce the practical application and the ease of use. We're going to emphasize the importance of long range or long-term thinking, of paying yourself first, of recapturing, recycling the money, and applying that interest back into your system so it never leaves your family. This isn't a financial investment. It's a process, a lifestyle. And by changing that one thing, you will change everything with your family's wealth and the future generational wealth that you will create. So let's dive in. So again, you guys have seen a lot of this, but the first thing you must understand about this process is it's a concept, and it's the concept called the infinite banking concept, pioneered by the late R. Nelson Nash. And a lot of my peers have had the privilege, and mentors have had the privilege of learning directly from Nelson. And you must understand his 5 principles. And we're really focused on the first 3 today. If you're going to be able to save money, right? If you're going to be able to get ahead, is you got to be able to pay yourself first. And by paying yourself first, you first have to have that long vision of, well, where am I going? What am I going to accomplish? What is that thing that I want to give my family, myself, to really change where I'm at today financially, to change that feeling and to free yourself for the future. So when we're talking to people, Gabe, the first knockout question that we give people, in our conversations, in our strategy calls is, are you saving money? And if the answer is no, the second thing is, well, have you weighed in? Have you created a budget? I hate the word budget, but have you financially weighed in? Do you know where you're at? Is there any place that you might be leaking money, or that you family could recapture the money? Because maybe you are saving a little bit. Maybe you do make enough that you have discretionary funds, but somehow every month that's magically leaving your system to never come back because you're just not aware yet. It's all progress starts with telling ourselves the truth.
We want to evaluate our financial plan, right? We don't want to, because everyone has a plan, whether it's a good plan or a bad plan. Gambling is a plan, but you got to look at, like you just said, sometimes the best medicine is sunlight, and you put that light on it, and then all of a sudden the answer to the problem just shows up in our face.
And it's like what you were just saying. It's you and I shared this during the week. It is, I'd rather have, and I talked to Patty about this yesterday. Many of you know and come to love my amazing wife and partner in this business. Ounce of a cure is more than, right, a pound of, well, what's the saying, Gabe, that you were telling me?
An ounce of prevention
Ounce of
beats
prevention.
a pound of the cure. Yeah.
That's it. And the meaning of that, think about it. An ounce is, there's 16 ounces in a pound. So if you can just make a very little change up front to avoid needing a lot of effort and a lot more things that happen. And, that's a lot of the people. I just met an amazing guy that lives right here in Florida with me, Gabe. And he's like, I've tried everything, Jason. I've tried Forex, I've tried stocks, I've tried this. And he's like, nothing's really worked. And I was like, that's okay, brother. Like, give yourself permission that you just didn't understand the rules of the game yet. When we understand that we didn't know what the rules of the game are, we have to start where we're at today and then make progress, because the progress is what's going to give us happiness. So when we're talking about long range thinking, we're not talking about like, hey, where am I going to be at the end of 2025? We're talking about, where am I going to be in 40, 50, 60 years? We say this all the time. R. Nelson Nash's, my favorite quote is, live or plan like you're going to live forever, and then live like this is your last day. And that just means being present.
We want our plan also to fit the infinite banking, I guess, mindset, because if that guy you had met with, his idea of wealth was probably, whatever I can save, I'm going to go and take that and try to make it bigger or, accumulate it, instead of thinking about his debts and expenses. And that's usually where we want to start first. We want to create wealth through our debts and expenses. And that's what infinite banking does, where we create that financial tailwind. So now we can, instead of saving 10% and making that like a chore, now we can save 20, 25, 40% of our money in ways that is not at risk and that we can control, and then we can multiply.
And that's perfect, Gabe. And when I see some great comments in the chat, when you guys think about, paying yourself first, what does that mean to you? Like, how much are you saving? A lot of you are already practicing this. I've got multiple people here that have started multiple policies. Some of you have been watching this for the first time. So no matter where you are in your journey, where are you in having money that you're paying yourself first before it's going out to your expenses, to your fund, to your lifestyle, to your debts, the things that you've already taken on? So how much are you guys saving? How much are you putting aside? Do you have a goal? Is your goal 10%? Is it 15, 20, 25%? Like, what is the amount that you're looking to pay yourselves first? And just think, when I think about this, Gabe, I think about this is just a way of us, a lot of reactions, a lot of things that happen in parenting, it's always about us and what's going on internally, right? So when we think about paying ourselves first, it's just giving ourselves a little bit more love. And Daryl saying goals to reach 70%. That's amazing. I met with a 21-year-old. She was saving about 75% because she still had the privilege of living at home, right? So she understood, hey, at this moment, it's not going to stay like this. I'm going to pay myself as much as I can.
And Jason, loving ourselves, but not just today, but us in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. One thing as I get older now, I'm 35, I thank myself for certain habits I started doing when I was younger. And if I follow my infinite banking plan and my financial plan, I'm for sure going to be thanking myself in the future. Now as a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I thank myself for all those hours I spent drilling and stretching and just learning and studying. Now it almost comes out effortlessly, almost like I've aligned my instincts with kind of the way it should be done. Where I see a lot of beginners, they're just hitting their head against the wall, and it's taken them a long, long time to really make any progress. But that's so key, is loving yourself, but start thinking about the time dimension, loving yourself in the future. And
Yeah, loving your future self is what Gabe's saying. Like, not only are you going to take care of, you're looking out, and just for everybody here, we've got a big group here. Just multiply that by 2. That's how many people are actually here. I love saying that. I think it's a little weird, but like right now, there's 4 of us presenting. There's me, there's my future self, there's Gabe and his future self, and we're here pouring into you guys. And this stuff's simple. What we're telling you today is not complicated. Like, if you look at my board, it says number 1, evaluate your financial plan. We're evaluating our income. It's the same thing I was showing on the other side, but we're gonna have our income, and that's gonna be W-2 income, right? So if you have a W-2 income here, green. So W-2 income, we have 1099, our investments, K1s, right? Interest earned. So this is our different incomes. Your 1099 can be a side hustle if you're a W-2 employee. And then we have our expenses. We have our groceries, utilities, insurance, gas, phone. I'm sure there's some I forgot here. But here's just, this is going to be everything that is every month, and it's kind of a fixed amount. And then over here, and your groceries, so they fluctuate some. And here we have our debts. We have our credit cards, our cars, our line of credits, our mortgage, and I kind of put some numbers here. I'm going to not really go into that yet. But so when you're financially weighing in, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do your incomes, add them all up. I put 12,000 here for this number. So that's per month. And then my expenses around 5,000 a month. And then our debts around 4,000 a month. So that leaves us with 3,000 here. This is the case study I talked about, building, keeping, creating more wealth. And this is where Patty and I started. This is where we started 4 years ago when I learned about this, is we made a pirate treasure sheet, I called it, because I did not want to do a budget because I thought that sounded awful. I wanted to have something big and something I could recapture. So when you look, I listed out each of my debts. So here's the Amazon Chase at 1678, right? These are the totals owed on each of it. Amex, Macy's, Dennis, Bank of America, 1 business card, 1 personal. Water filtration system, because our water here in Ocoee has more chlorine than a pool, Gabe. I don't know if you knew that, but they do that on purpose. And then we have another credit card here, my wife's car, and my pickup truck. Right? So we owed on these, and we have some additional debt I didn't put on here, but we had $76,786 of debt right here. Okay. The minimum payments was $2,064 a month. The average interest is 13%. So I'm going to pause here. And now some of these, like these are smaller, but it's the volume of interest, as we know, because we talk about this all the time. But when you look at this, if I said, okay, hey, you guys have $76,000 and now you can invest it and make 13%, how many of you would do that deal if you knew that it was a guarantee to come back to you? That's a pretty solid return on your money, right?
Tax free, right?
Yeah. It's a great return. And so, and this is where we talk about, I think we're one of the only IBC groups, practitioning groups that really talk about building our wealth through our debts, because if we're taking back the banking function, us putting on the hat for each of those debts means we recapture that minimum payment per month back to ourselves the moment that we can take that over. So what's that look like? So it looks like us, right? And I was drawing this earlier. I want more time with it, Gabe. But so we have money coming in, that's our income, and it has to go somewhere. We're going to deposit the money into a checking account, right? And I called it their bank. It's not our bank yet, but that's their bank. And then we got our expenses, our debts, and our lifestyle. Lifestyle, think of fun. You know, the guy I just connected with, he had budgeted it, which I was really happy about. He had fun budgeted. He had how much him, his wife, and his daughter were able to go out, and then money comes out. So you have this pipe, money's going in, money's coming out. But you notice it's not staying with us at all. It's flowing through this system, and it goes out, and it leaks out forever. Like all of you think about how much money you made in the last year and how much did you keep? You know, the biggest eroders of our wealth is going to be our taxes, the banking system, inflation, and just not understanding the rules of the game. So we want to make sure that that money flowing out. So what do? We look at this lifestyle one. We go back to the first page here, right? I said we have 3,000. And if you get to this point where you have all 3,000 ends up leaving here and you're not keeping any of it, well, that's a problem because that was discretionary money. That means that that wasn't budgeted. It wasn't accounted for. We weren't looking to say, hey, where could we keep this money or a portion of this money and go back? So if we go back to the first page to this, we want to add fun. You know, just add a fund here and budget out, like talk to your spouse, talk to your family, and add funds for $500. So then maybe this is 2,500 versus 3,000 because now we put an extra 500 to budget in fund. And then we go back over here, and now what Gabe and I talked about, we've been teaching every week, you have to get on the mat. You have to start paying yourself. So now we want to set up the account to where we have money flowing in the checking for our debts, for our expenses, but now we got to divert some of it in this pipe and we got to set up a segregated account. Now, a lot of people, Gabe, they get intimidated by the word segregated. What's that mean? What's segregated mean? Everyone pop in the chat. What's segregated mean to you? You know, it's a fancy word for separate. Just means another account. And it could even be with the same bank. You could use it at a different bank if you want to play the shell game and keep your money in different places, but it's probably easier to set it up at the same bank where you have your checking, set up another checking and have the money flow to here. I put 3,000 because that's the numbers we actually use when we create our first policy. But say it's
And
500 a month.
credit unions let you open up multiple ones for free. You don't have to pay. I gotta get rid of my Bank of America. It's like $30 a month. I gotta get rid of that.
We got Gaby, Janice, Daryl, Drew, everyone knew what the segregated was. So you guys are super knowledgeable and smart. Again, this is just a revisit of the three most important rules because it really is that simple. We're just changing this one thing. And so now, because I budgeted for fun, now that money is going to flow down into the segregated. And if I wasn't saving, like if all that money was leaving my account, the first instructions I would give someone, Gabe, or the first piece of doing this, of paying yourself first is like, okay, we'll go and pay yourself that $2,500 a month and have some consistent, persistent results. Like do it over time. So do this 2,500 and now save this money for like 3 months. And now you have $7,500 that you've been able to save where you didn't have any savings before. You know, and some people might say, well, Jason, what's the best move from here? Do I go and just pay off the debts and then recapture that money? And the question, if you're thinking about what's the most optimal, yes, you could do that. But at the same time, if I gave that $7,500 away, would I ever earn money on that money again? No, right? That money would be gone forever. So, with that, so now what do we need? If we've been able to save and we have our system set up, now we need a specially designed whole life. If you guys have watched the video, if you understand the infinite banking process, you start understanding the rules of the game, the next piece is going to be really looking. We've tracked our spending now. We've analyzed our expenses. We've calculated the excess. Now we've set up a system to keep that money in our family. And so now where do we want to optimally put it? Like, yes, we could do all this with a segregated account, but most optimally, we want to set up a specially designed whole life, specially engineered for you, cash rich whole life, where you're going to have access to the money within what? The first, how many days, Gabe?
Within 30 days.
Within the first 30 days. And so now we're having this, I have 3,000 here still, but you have this money, right, that was going to the segregated account flowing into the specially designed. So it's going into your segregated. It goes through this specially designed. And now this money is going to flow out from your policy through the segregated and over to the debts, right? And where you see the big wheel, I try to make a nice circle, but this is just the circle of keeping the money in our family. So now every time we knock out one of these expenses, if we go back to this page, again, if I had more time, I'd have more of this done, but this is $138 for these two, right? This, it's 100. Now we got $188. This, so on and so forth. So now let's say we knock out the first three, and now we have $188 per month. And we just set that up to what? To go back into our segregated. And now here, there's a choice of what we can do here. You can either just keep putting that $188 a month plus the $2,500 that's going in as you're knocking out these debts and taking ownership of them. But that $188, or call it $200 a month, that can either go back and sit in the segregated account and build up there while you're building up your premium deposits to have more cash value to take another loan. So maybe a quarterly loan. But now you're taking that amount, and this is what we did. This is exactly how we've knocked out all of our debt, Gabe. In the first about 2.5 years, we knocked out that $76,000 of debt, and we recaptured, a significant amount of money, which is about $2,200 a month. Like, how many of you here would want a $2,200 a month raise? Anybody?
Yeah.
Right? There you go. Daryl says me. And so this is 3 credit cards being recaptured, and the percentage is much higher than this, but this is the average, right? We talked about. So now this builds up, and then we knock out the next thing. And as we're going, we keep doing this process over and over. Like we said, banking's a little boring, but all we're doing is we're building up the amount in here, we're building up the amount in here, or you can have this money directed back to here. You get to choose how you want to pay yourself back. Anything you want to add here, Gabe, so far?
You did such a good job. And one way I like to think about it is just your whole life policy is buying out all your debts, and then you just pay off the same way you had planned to pay the banks. You're already committed in those debts, make it whole. And now that line of credit will be full for you. So if you're ready to start using it to make more money, that's there. But otherwise, your kids are going to get it in their death benefit.
And that's the third piece, right? And thank you, Gabe. That's a third piece of a 3-cup setup. And I'm not going to go into that right in this moment, but that's just as the money's going through our specially designed whole life, it goes through the segregated. That's where the loan goes to. It goes into this account. From this account, we pay off this debt. We put on the hat. So now we're putting on the hat of this debt. We're the banker over here. We got our banking hat on, and now we're just taking the money and we're moving it back into the segregated or back into the whole life. And so this total amount was $76,000 and change. The total amount that we per month is $2,200 a month, like I said. What I didn't show you is right under this debt here, the next debt was a $40,000 debt. And that $40,000 debt was $933 a month. So I can't really write it under here, but so just after that, there was another $40,000 debt. It was at 14.5%, and it was $933 a month. And this is after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was leaving my corporate America job, and I was like, well, how do I make the transition? How do I start creating passive income? All my income is from trading my time for money. And I'll tell all of you, and I've shared a lot of this, a lot of you heard me say this in the calls you've had with me, is that when we're making a move financially and we're doing it because we think that we have to do it and we feel a certain amount of pressure and internal tension and we can talk ourselves into doing the thing, that is not where you want to operate from. You do not want to operate from a place where it's a little bit desperate and it has to work. And if it doesn't work, then the whole house of cards falls down. How many of you guys have been out of debt multiple times and put yourself back in debt? I did it. I did it at least 2 or 3 times in my adult life before I was 46. Asked a friend for a financial philosophy, and he handed me R. Nelson Nash's book, which all we're doing today is we're just teaching what R. Nelson teaches in the book and showing you 3 of his 5 principles. Yeah, Jay says, yep, yep. So Alan, and then like Alan, I think Alan's sharing that he has a high yield for his segregated, which is a great way to do. You just have to make sure that you can move the money in and out of it easily, right? And so we have this amount. Once Gabe, I was able to pay ourselves back $26,400 that we recaptured in a year from the 2,200 a month. Like once we knocked out all of these, we recaptured this much per month times 12 is 26,400. You keep adding $2,500 a month. We were adding 3,000 a month there. And the first policy I set up as a 70-30, meaning I had 70% access in year one to the money going in. So I was able within a year and a half to pay off that next $40,000 loan, recapture another $933 a month, and I just rounded up to 3,000 or 1,000. So now I'm recapturing $3,300 a month or $3,200 a month, and that's how it went. And so
It was a business venture. What was the 40 grand for?
yeah, I took a SoFi loan at 14% to invest in a trucking done for you that didn't work out. It turned out to go bankrupt and lost all that investment, but I was still on the hook to pay off that loan. And I'm just sharing with you guys because I made all the mistakes. Like I'm not coming into this with an amount of expertise that or experiences that you all haven't shared. It's more about, well, when I learned, I didn't know the rules of the game and I didn't know the rules I was playing by. And once I learned that the rules were super easy, I thought every single American should do this. And as you can see here, then you have the cherry on top. The cherry on top's not just the immediate guaranteed death benefit, right? The legacy piece that you can buy for your family. It's also you start having confidence in yourself because you're paying yourself every month. You're seeing that account build up. You're seeing your debts go down. And it gives you that peace of mind. It's that feeling of freedom. Like all of you want that feeling of freedom. I know you do because I did. And now you have it. And it's easy to not remember how much, like Gabe mentioned at the beginning, I loved it. He was sharing, hey, I've had these wins during this year, even during this course, during the last 8 weeks, I've made this progress. I know, you bought the farm, Gabe, and I know that you're doing a lot of really cool things and you get to use this and show this with your family. And you have a huge family. That picture you sent me yesterday, I was like, holy cow, that's a really big family. Like you guys must have had 25 people in that picture. And so again, let's go back to the discipline of why we're teaching these principles, Gabe. And so when we're looking, we want a system that is self-sustaining. We want a system that gives you guys guarantees, a system that you're in control of, a system that's away from the government, a system that's set up for your big plans. We could talk about your future self and where you want to go for hours, because the more clear you get on that, the bigger your plans will be for this. Because once you realize, like Gaby, once, Michael, your plans now, Sandra, once you all realize where you're going, the clearer it is of where your money needs to go first before it goes out to other people's banks or other opportunities or other things you're going to buy. And so mastering these rules, like we've talked about in the 8 weeks so far, is no difference than being a white belt and stepping on the mat and saying, yes, I can, yes, I will. And then you keep showing up every day. Gabe, anything to add? Anything coming to you for your long-term thinking, jujitsu, how you teach?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned financial struggles and just situations. I've been through so many myself. I have so many stories, but on the mats, it's kind of the same thing. I've been tapped out thousands of times. Like when I train with Amy now, even though she's 2/3 my size and smaller than me, I let her get to positions where she can finish me. Like it's not, oh, I'm letting her finish me from here, but if she's on my back and she's got like the full strangle going, or she's got my arm hyperextended, I have to tap, otherwise she's gonna snap my arm. Now she's not gonna hurt me because she has a lot of self-control and she's a great training partner. But some of my beginners, they have such a big ego, they don't want to get tapped out. And they tap out maybe 5 times a week, where I'm tapping out like 50 times a week. So I'm getting so much more volume and experience in those positions, because the best way to kind of know the defense or the offense is to know the defense. And if I can get really good at stopping up until the last second where I'm about to go unconscious, and then start to work my escape from there, I'll know so much better on the attacking end too. So that's what having a good coach and mentor is for, is they can help shortcut and you can learn from their experience, and then you can start just building on top of that. And that's what we try to do with Nelson Nash's legacy, right? And everything Brent and Chris have done. You know, we're not making any of this up. We've learned it from them. We've been applying it. We've been practicing, and the principles work. In the beginning, you kind of have to borrow our belief, because there's going to be a lot of distractions like, oh, but I just got this 0% credit card check in the mail that, you know, I can use. And there's, everyone's going to, especially once you have good credit and you've paid everything off, everyone's going to be offering you cheap money, and they want to put you in those financial shackles, and then you owe them. Right. And that's what we want to eliminate, is giving away our wealth. I don't know. I could keep going, man.
Yeah, they're fishing. That I just brought. I love that you shared that with the, like, how many of you, how many, if you get on your mailbox right now, Alan or Daryl or Dexter, Alejandro, how many offers do you have for debt consolidation, for lines of credit, for all these different things? Like, we did a first lien HELOC on our home. Every day I'm getting a phone call about, yeah, 10 to 15 a week, Paula says, right? So if you look at those, just think of those as fishing. And why are they doing that? Because it's so valuable to have you paying them interest over time, consistently, persistently. So if we shift and look at what they're doing as what we can do by reviewing our, like going through the steps today, review your cash flow, financially weigh in. If you haven't weighed in a while, maybe you're experienced, but weigh in again. Is there something that maybe has changed? Maybe you're leaking a little bit more cash by going out on the weekends more because your life's gotten more busy. You know, maybe you have to reweigh in on where your goals are today and what you want in the long term, and just recalibrate. But you get to go and first financially weigh in, budget for fun, like give yourself the chance to go for fun, and that'll help you make decisions as well. Like with your significant other, like Patty, like there's a lot of things we want to go do with our boys being off right now because they have so much energy. But at the same time, it's looking like, okay, well, we can go here, but let's eat dinner first. And maybe we'll just have a dessert when we're out walking around, looking at the lights, doing things together, versus going out and having a whole meal for four of us, right? So, because we have big visions, we have big plans as where we're going as a family.
And even for enjoyment, I recommend, this is a personal thing, but if you can invest those look at that as investment too, $500 into maybe a hobby, like maybe Taekwondo or Jiu-Jitsu, right? That fulfills you, gives you more vitality, and then you end up not spending money at bars. If you go out drinking, you're going to wake up with a headache. You're not going to want to work that day, and just going to set you back. So even the money you invest in enjoyment, hopefully it's something that's fueling you. It's not detracting or taking away, you know, from your ability to function and grow.
I love that. And that's just looking at your habits, Gabe, and saying, where do we want to go and what are the things that are going to build us versus taking away? We want to add more value to our lives, love ourselves more. We talked about that earlier. So let's just go back through, review really quick where we were today. So one is just having a financial plan, weighing in, seeing where you're at. Now, if your money, remember how we had money in, money out, because we have expenses, debts, and we didn't have fun kind of budgeted in. So the money just flowing through that tube and leaving. Now, if you're not practicing, then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, I'm going to open a segregated account, a separate account, and my money is going to be diverted off to there. The money I'm saving every month, I'm going to build that up. Once I've seen that work, then I'm going to go watch the money multiplier presentation. I'm going to go learn what the banks are doing to make money, how the average American's thinking about money, and I'm going to learn and empower myself by teaching myself the process, reading R. Nelson Nash's book, And then we're going to jump in and have a conversation and talk about building your specially designed whole life policy to where now you're paying yourself into that account, building that up, and then using it to recapture, recycle that money to take back control of it. And then reflect on your success stories, give yourselves high fives, celebrate the wins, review on a quarterly basis, and just see where you're at. And if you do these things, I promise you, we've been at this for 8 weeks. We're going to wrap it up next week. But I promise you that you guys, with the information we've given you, it'll change you financially forever. Guaranteed. It's changed my family. It's changed Gabe's family. A lot of people here have been practicing and being successful with it. So if you haven't got on the mat yet, this is another invitation to get on the mat, to start practicing the way in, to start paying yourself. And when you're ready, just reach out, schedule a call, learn how to do this, because you need somebody that is capable of especially engineering this for you and connecting you to the right companies, the right mutually owned dividend paying whole life companies so you can practice infinite banking. Any questions? Where is Nelson's book available? You can get it either from the Nelson Nash Institute or on Amazon. They're probably the easiest places to get it, Jeanette. You can get it on Audible too, but I will tell you, no offense to whoever read the book, it's really boring. So if you want to get the book, I suggest you get both copies. I know, Gaby, you did this where you listened to it and you read it simultaneously, but when you're listening to it, you might not be able to really understand the tables. Here you can kind of look at the math, even though Nelson regrets putting the math in the book, because interest rates are always changing. It's not about the math, it is about the concept and the process. So again, as our Nelson Nash taught us in Becoming Your Own Banker, by changing just one thing, you can change everything in your life for the better financially. You can find that financial freedom that would change everything as we enter the next year, as we enter 2025. We reviewed the 3 most important rules, which were 1, think long range. Number 2 was to pay yourself first, love yourself just a little bit more so you can find that financial freedom. And 3 is to recycle and recapture your money, turn your debts into assets for your family. So I'll see you in this next video. More infinite banking. We're always talking about everything in your life through infinite banking as that foundation to build your guaranteed legacy, to build that guaranteed financial foundation for you to find your freedom. So that feeling of freedom. So until next time, I'll see you in this next video, but go ahead and subscribe if you're new here, smash the like button and ring the bell so you're alerted to new content. God bless. I'll see you in the next video.